The bruise on Clara's jaw had faded to a sickly yellow, but her father's words still seared like a branding iron. "You're nothing but a burden, girl. Always have been." The echo lingered in the empty Montana cabin as she folded her mother's quilt into a worn saddlebag. 3 days had passed since he'd spoken those words, 3 days since he'd given her until sunrise to leave. The October wind howled through the cabin's cracks, carrying the promise of snow. At 19, Clara had only calloused hands from years of cooking and cleaning for a man who saw her as a burden since her mother died birthing a son who didn't survive the night. She pressed her face to the frosted window, watching her father's silhouette stumble between the barn and the cabin. He'd been drinking since noon, toasting his freedom. Tomorrow, he'd likely sell the cabin to the railroad men circling like vultures, take his money, and vanish. Clara's fingers traced her mother's wedding ring, now hanging from a chain around her neck. Her mother had spoken of kind men beyond these mountains, men who saw women as partners, not problems, but those stories felt like fairy tales under the storm clouds gathering overhead. Hoofbeats broke her thoughts. A lone rider emerged from the swirling snow, tall in his saddle, leading a packhorse laden with supplies. His posture exuded confidence, his horse moving with gentle trust. This was no drifter. Her father staggered from the barn, bottle in hand, squinting at the stranger. Clara watched as the rider dismounted with fluid grace, his movements hinting at strength held in check. He removed his hat, revealing a weathered but kind face, and his eyes met hers through the window, seeing her without judgment. "Name's Jacob Stern," he said, his voice clear through the thin walls. "Heard you might be selling." Her father's words slurred. "Depends on your offer. Railroad men been sniffing, but they ain't serious." "I'm no railroad man," Jacob replied. "I run cattle 20 miles north. Need winter shelter for my hands, maybe expand come spring." Clara crept closer to the door, listening. Her father swayed, sizing up Jacob, who stood still, snow dusting his shoulders. "There's a complication," her father said, gesturing toward the cabin. "Got a daughter, 19. Trouble since she was born. She's part of any deal." Clara's breath caught. He was selling her like livestock. Jacob's silence stretched, heavy with thought. "What exactly are you suggesting?" he asked, his tone careful. "Take her off my hands. Marry her, work her, I don't care. She cooks, keeps house. Might breed well enough." Her father took another swig. Clara pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting the urge to scream. Where could she go? Into a winter that would kill her before Christmas? Jacob's voice cut through. "I'd want to speak with her. No deal otherwise." Her father cursed, stomping toward the cabin. "Clara, get out here. Man wants to see what he's buying." The cold hit her like a slap as she stepped onto the porch. Jacob's eyes met hers, taking in the bruise, her fear, and the defiance in her chin. "Miss Clara," he said, touching his hat. "I'm Jacob Stern. Your father and I are discussing the property. I understand there are considerations." Before she could respond, hoofbeats thundered. 6 riders emerged from the snow, led by Frank Morrison, the railroad's lead negotiator. His men wore guns like they knew how to use them, their faces hard and predatory. "Looks like we got an auction," Morrison called, his voice sharp. Her father, suddenly more sober, muttered, "Thought you weren't back till next week." "Plans change." Morrison's eyes locked on Clara, sending ice down her spine. "Heard you've got more than land to bargain with. My boys could use some hospitality." Jacob stepped between Clara and the men, his voice low. "The lady's not part of any deal." Morrison laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "Lady? This is Whitfield's burden. Talk of 3 counties how he wants her gone. We can solve that problem." "Now hold on," her father slurred, sensing danger. "We had an agreement." "Agreements change," Morrison said, dismounting with his men. Especially when new opportunities arise. Jacob's hand twitched toward his hip but stopped. "You'll ride out now," he said, voice deadly quiet. 6 against 1, stranger, Morrison sneered. "I like those odds." "Then you're not paying attention." Jacob's whisper carried weight. "Miss Clara, go inside. Lock the door." Her feet felt rooted to the porch. This stranger was about to face 6 armed men for her, a woman he'd just met, a burden her father despised. Morrison's hand drifted to his gun. "Last chance, cowboy." Jacob shook his head. "I don't abandon women to men like you." The first shot cracked the air. Clara pressed against the cabin wall as gunfire erupted. Jacob moved with precision, using the porch beam for cover, while her father scrambled drunkenly to the barn. When the shooting stopped, 3 of Morrison's men lay in the snow. Morrison clutched a wounded shoulder, his remaining men retreating. "This ain't over," he spat. "Yes, it is," Jacob replied, gun steady. "Don't come back." As the hoofbeats faded, Clara stepped out. Jacob reloaded his gun, hands steady despite the blood on his sleeve. "Just a graze," he said, catching her look. "You all right?" The question, so simple, tightened her throat. When had anyone cared? "Why did you do that?" "You don't know me." "I know enough," Jacob said. "I saw the bruise, heard how your father talks about you. And I saw you stand your ground. That's not a burden. That's strength." She touched her jaw, tears threatening. "He said I was worthless. He's a fool." Jacob's voice was gentle but firm. He pulled a leather pouch from his coat. "My mother gave me this for the woman who'd make me believe in forever. I saw you in that window, holding yourself together when everything was falling apart. I knew then." "You don't know me," she whispered. "I know you're brave. I know you're alone. And I know I want to prove some men see partners, not problems." Her father stumbled from the barn, sobered by the violence. "Railroad men'll be back," he mumbled, avoiding her eyes. "More guns next time." "No, they won't," Jacob said. "Morrison's hurt, his men spooked. Word travels fast in these mountains." He studied her father. "There's a town 2 days south. Railroad's hiring laborers. Honest work, regular pay. A fresh start if you stay off the bottle." Her father blinked, surprised. "You do that? After what I—" "Everyone deserves a chance to be better," Jacob said. An hour later, Clara watched her father ride south, sober for the first time in months, carrying supplies Jacob provided. The cabin felt lighter, as if years of bitterness had left with him. "You sure about this?" she asked as Jacob loaded her belongings onto his packhorse. "Taking in a stranger?" "I've spent 5 years building a ranch, waiting for something I couldn't name," Jacob said. "Tonight, I saw you and knew what it was." He helped her onto her horse, his touch gentle but sure. "My ranch is 22 miles north. Mountains turn purple at sunset, meadows bloom with wildflowers in spring. A house that's been empty too long." As they rode into the clearing storm, Clara felt the weight of years lift. Behind them, snow covered the tracks of violence. Ahead lay uncertainty but also possibility, the kind her mother had whispered about. Years later, standing in the doorway of the home Jacob built, now filled with children's laughter, Clara recalled that night. A stranger had seen worth where her blood saw burden. The mountains still turned purple at sunset, the meadows bloomed each spring, and her heart had found a home in a man who fought for her when she couldn't fight for herself.